For at least a good 2 or 3 year stretch, there was one man in the NBA that possessed that kind of power, to the level I don't think any of us have really seen before, and how all this happened both makes sense and is somewhat confusing. All for a person I've never even seen smile and has the wildest laugh you'll ever hear, and found his way to a lead role on an aging dynasty, improbably. When I think about guys in the history of the NBA who've possessed a great deal of power, I think of Magic and Bird, Michael Jordan, LeBron, maybe Allen Iverson, or especially Kobe Bryant. And it makes sense too. I mean, all those guys I just mentioned were lottery picks and were handed the expectations of changing the entire fortunes of an NBA franchise from day one. Allen Iverson was drafted by an 18-win Philadelphia 76ers team. Magic Johnson was drafted by a middling Los Angeles Lakers team with 47 wins. Larry Bird was drafted by a 32-win Boston Celtics team, and LeBron was drafted by a 17-win Cleveland Cavaliers team, just to name a few. And the guy with an unorthodox laugh was drafted 15th overall to a Spurs team that won 4 NBA titles in 7 years. I think you might have at least an idea of exactly where I'm going with this. It's so rare for a player to get drafted by one of the best franchises in the NBA to then turn into a superstar caliber player just a few seasons later. I mean, just think about it for a second. How many players can you recall that became superstars in just their first few seasons in the NBA after being drafted by, forget even a dynasty, just a really good team? If we think of today's superstar players, LeBron, Steph, KD, Giannis, Luka, Morant, name them all of them were drafted by really bad to average teams at best. And you might be thinking to yourself, of course they were drafted by bad teams. They were lottery picks for a reason. And they were really, really good before even stepping foot into the NBA. Guys, that's my point. Kawhi Leonard's path to superstardom is, by all accounts, the most different and outstanding path to superstardom that I could think of. For a guy who was seen as nothing more than a tenacious defender and someone who could jump, to being thrusted into the NBA Finals stage against one of the top 3 or 5 players of all time, and a guy like LeBron, and he won the Finals MVP. He did something only Magic Johnson can say that he accomplished at a younger age when he pulled it off in the 2014 NBA Finals in a 5-game gentleman's sweep of the LeBron Wade Bosh Big 3 Miami Heat. And I'm not the first, or certainly won't be the last person to say that Kawhi was arguably the most improbable Finals MVP in the history of the NBA. Especially when you consider that Kawhi was playing alongside a consensus top 10 player of all time in Tim Duncan, and one of the greatest backcourts of all time in Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, all Hall of Fame level players. He got the Finals MVP award for supposedly giving LeBron a tough time throughout the entire series, and you can give me all of LeBron's numbers, and I agree he wasn't shut down per se. But all I know is this.
He was not enthusiastic. Now, if I was coming in the game, he would have thrown a parade. And so, the greatness of Kawhi Leonard as
if I could get that kind of reaction from the game's best player, as a 22-year-old, I know I have to be doing something great. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the birth of an emerging superstar in the NBA who would look to take the reins of a still very much alive but deteriorating dynasty with a 38-year-old Duncan and a 37-year-old Ginobili. Now fast forward 3 more years and Kawhi was now one of the top 3 candidates for MVP in consecutive seasons and was on his way to maybe, not just maybe, pulling off something all-time special in defeating the 2017 Golden State Warriors. Now, it was only one game in the first game of the entire series, but dominating the Warriors like that, on their home floor, that was convincing. But of course, thanks to a guy I would rather not mention around here, Kawhi landed awkwardly and hurt himself. That was it. Goodbye, San Antonio. But hold on. Kawhi was injured and sat out even though the San Antonio medical staff cleared him to return to action multiple times. But Kawhi wasn't at all convinced that he was 100% healed and ready to go, so he didn't play. And that positioned Tony Parker to come out and say, "I've been through it. It was a rehab for me for 8 months. Same kind of injury as Kawhi, but mine was 100 times worse, but the same kind of injury." Yeah, that pretty much burned the bridge between Kawhi and the Spurs. Kawhi requested a trade from the Spurs 2018 and put the Lakers as his preferred destination, but the Spurs decided to ship him to Canada and the Toronto Raptors. And this move officially started a whole new reign for Kawhi in the NBA. In the 2018-19 season, Kawhi Leonard missed a whopping 22 games, not to injury, but to the new age load management. What's even crazier is that the Raptors management were willing to let Kawhi sit out as many games as he needed just to keep him happy and to avoid another situation like what happened a year earlier in San Antonio. The Raptors sent their franchise player away for Kawhi Leonard with an expiring contract and put all their marbles in Kawhi's basket just so he would stay on the Raptors past this season. And in all fairness to Toronto, they very much did everything they could to give Kawhi all the power one man on a team of 12 could ever have. But teams knew, namely the LA Clippers, that he would ditch Toronto for Los Angeles in the following summer. So they did everything they could to maximize their chances of getting Kawhi, not just when free agency was getting ready to start up, but months and months in advance. Bruce Bowen, a Spurs lifer and former television analyst for the LA Clippers until 2018. You want to know why the Clippers abruptly fired him?
Oh yeah, it was, well, basically we don't view your views that way, and because of your comments of Kawhi Leonard,
who told you that?
We are choosing to go a separate way.
And what exactly were Bowen's comments to Kawhi that got him fired? You were protected in San Antonio. I think there's nothing but excuses going on. First, it was, well, I was misdiagnosed. Look here, you got $18 million this year and you think that they're trying to rush you? You didn't play for the most part of a full season this year, and you're the go-to guy. You're the franchise, and you want to say that they didn't have your best interest at heart? Are you kidding me? Remember, Kawhi is still in the Raptors at the time of this quote. The Clippers fired Bruce, so there wouldn't be anything that would rub Kawhi the wrong way about the Clippers. Basically, these guys knew they had the best shot at getting Kawhi. Man, if only someone bowed down to me like the Clippers did to Kawhi. When free agency hit in 2019, Kawhi was, of course, the prize of the free agent pool. But the way he finessed his free agency that year deserves some kind of award or recognition. I mean, this dude is straight savage. Never have I seen one man hold two NBA franchises hostage the way Kawhi did 3 years ago. Both the Clippers and the Lakers were ready to bow down and honor any and every request in order to lure Kawhi to their teams. Kawhi, of course, chose to go to the Clippers, and it felt like the Lakers were left for dead even though they had already landed Anthony Davis in a trade and, of course, already had LeBron. And the feeling that Kawhi would choose the purple and gold, the Lakers held off going after some pieces that would have helped them strengthen the depth of the roster so they could offer Kawhi the max. And that's when many people speculated that Kawhi had this planned all along so that the Lakers wouldn't go add any more talent while the Clippers stood firm and added any nice piece to the mix. And to make matters even more tormenting for the Lakers, as we know now, Kawhi was working behind the scenes the entire time with Paul George to get him to force his way out of OKC via trade. This tweet by one Clippers insider says it all. This is Lawrence Frank from the Clippers at a season ticket holder event on July 1st meeting with Kawhi Leonard. We put potential targets up on the board and Paul George's name was on there. Kawhi said, "That's the guy." Kawhi didn't end up signing with the LA Clippers until July 6th, which meant that Kawhi had the Clippers in negotiations for several days about a Paul George trade. And once it was announced that Kawhi officially signed a deal with the Clippers, literally minutes later, it was announced that Paul George was traded to the Clippers to join Kawhi in LA. And that's how you strong-arm an organization and flex your mighty power. And for the Lakers, yeah, they were stiffed and left pretty high and dry, though they did get the last laugh that season to come out as NBA champions. But you know, to this day, I still cannot believe this turn of events for such an even-keeled and close to the vest superstar like Kawhi. None of us could have ever guessed the type of guy Kawhi is internally and what his demands bring for an entire NBA franchise. He's won a couple of Finals MVPs and won the Raptors their first championship in franchise history, which, let me state, that is deserving of receiving VIP treatment in the league and, well, power. But still, for a quiet 15th pick in the draft, and as someone who few people saw coming, Kawhi's path to becoming a powerful mogul in the NBA is still really fascinating. And for that 2 or 3 year stretch in the NBA, he was, by all accounts, the most polarizing man in basketball. I wonder what it's going to be like if he can bring the Clippers their first title. I guess it's to be continued.